Risk, I never thought it'd be this. I'm jumping out of your arms. I land and fall in the pit. Is this what they call the abyss? I fought and clawed for an inch, turning a miracle mile. I could recall when your lips used to contort into smiles. Bright as the sun that's drawn in eclipse. I haven't seen light in a while. Hasn't been bright in a while. Risk.
Coronavirus episode number 3 or 4.
Yeah, 3 or 4. I don't know. It's been going on for a while now. Just everything blends.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, man. When I was at work, when I was actually going to work and times weren't like they are now, I would typically digest a lot of information, and I still do read a lot of articles. But like I've gotten to a point where I don't have the desire to stay on top of things the way I previously did. When I'm at home, I just feel like being at home, it would stress me out more by trying to keep up with everything that's going on. So, dude,
You mean the protests, the coronavirus, the president, just everything going on.
It's just so much.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to. So with my roommates, it seems to be the only topic of discussion. Oof. And so I'm the one black guy. Yeah. I'm one black man living with 2 white girls and a white guy, and the conversations always typically steer towards race. And like I've said many times before, race is, to me, is one of the most boring topics to talk about because it doesn't matter. And if I ever left an interaction with somebody and the only thing that they could really remember about me was like, oh, you mean Ray, that black guy? I clearly did something wrong in that interaction. So like, but it keeps coming up. Like I got one roommate in particular, the guy who it's driving him crazy because from where he's sitting, if you're a white guy with an opinion that is not in line with the woke people right now, then you're automatically a racist. and it's so fucked up.
I had a similar conversation this weekend.
Yeah, and it's like, wait, you're telling me just by me simply thinking differently than you, if I present you facts, if they don't align with your narrative, I am immediately deemed a racist. So now, right, he has all these conversations with me because I'm not woke. So he's like, dude, this looks crazy to you, right? I'm like, yes, it is. I'm on your side. And he's like, yo, can you come and argue with these white women for me? So
I got an idea. Have you thought about charging per hour on that?
And it's not a bad idea.
That could be lucrative.
Yeah. So okay, and then so like my girlfriend's birthday is this Saturday, and she has a bunch of they have mutual friends, right? And he's like, they're gonna be here Saturday. He's like,
oh, we gotta do a podcast right after.
He's like, bruh, please talk. Because he's like, for me, he's like, all right, the one thing that keeps me from winning arguments with my liberal white friends, particularly white women, is the fact that I'm white. So their trump card always is, you're racist and you don't understand. And he's like, your and I opinions line up exactly. So they can't use that trump card with you. So they would have to argue with you based on what you're saying, and they couldn't default to racism. So he wants me to argue with them so bad, and I'm like, I feel his frustration.
I guess I get what he's saying. Yeah.
Yeah, trust me, dude. I get his frustration because it's like, how do you, as a white guy, if somebody called you racist, how do you combat that does not dig you a deeper hole? You can't say I got black friends. No, what, right? Because that doesn't mean you're that whole bullshit excuse. You can't use that. So if someone called you a racist, say right now, I was like, Andrew, you're racist. What would be your comeback to that?
I would just have to look at why they were saying that. And you can't really say anything back to it, but
right.
you would just have to look at, is there an actual reason why they're saying it, or is this just a hypothetical situation?
No. Like, okay, let's say you said something like, for example, you said, I don't think black people are unfairly are killed by police, are targeted by police to be killed above any other race. I think it's a problem of police brutality against all races and not one race in particular.
Just cops.
So let's say
dicks.
just cops being this. Let's say you said that, and I go, Andrew, you're a racist for saying that. What would you say back?
Why are you calling me a racist for saying that? I guess that's what my response would be.
Okay, and then their response would probably be something like, you don't know the lived experience of black people and the history of slavery.
And
then
I guess you would do me as a person, I would use some sort of facts that I had previously researched because that was my deep opinion. And then I guess you'd be called racist for those facts.
Yeah. So how do you get? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
It's just how it is right now. It is just how it is.
Crazy.
Because there's all levels of it. Because there is I mean, there literally are white supremacists, and then there are people that just don't know anything about someone that's different than them. They have no experience with someone outside of their race, and that could be, the other far end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
In terms of, who's being called racist.
Right. So and that's my thing. I remember when we first started this podcast, I used to tell you, I used to joke that they're coming for you, white guys. And we would laugh about that shit. And now, bro, it's a reality that if you are a white guy and you don't say Black Lives Matter, whatever, and buy into the whole thing lock, stock, you're immediately placed into a category of race. You could lose your job. You could lose your house. I mean, you could lose your entire livelihood. Your life can crumble if you don't adopt these ideologies. And that's a weird place to be, man. And as a white guy, I feel like I literally just feel differently, not because I feel any differently about a race of people, but I look at the statistics and they don't support your claims. Just by you saying something as fundamentally logical as that, you could lose everything, man. That's not okay, bro.
Well, it kind of is just in terms of just in terms of people losing their job. It's kind of up to the company, and you represent the company. If they don't dude, if you go viral for anything, you're probably going to get fired. Like, is it ever most viral things? I feel like that's why it's called viral, because it's like a virus. But it's mostly infamous people nowadays, Karens, so to speak. And I forget what they're calling the male equivalent of that. But, a lot of white women being fired.
Yeah. It's nuts, man.
But it's up to the company, obviously. Like, it's up to the company, if they're private, if they're public, what they want to do about that. Like, it's not necessarily up to, we can judge it whether it's right or wrong, but it's really, in terms of America, it's up to them.
Yeah, no, you definitely have a point. If a company says that, okay, you express some views that are not in line with what we believe as a company.
We don't want that type of attention at all. Get away.
Yeah.
Like, if we have it for one more day, it could ruin us, type thing.
Correct. But here's my thing. If you are at a Walmart and you're employed with company X and you go, man, I love oranges. I think everyone should eat oranges. And somebody hears that view that really loves pineapples and goes to company X and says, this motherfucker is all about oranges and I'm a pineapple guy and I can't stand for that. Company X has to go, well, even though they are an employee of ours, what they say and do off our premise is not always going to be a representation of us. Because at some point, you have to be a free individual and be able to express your thoughts and opinions without worrying about getting fired. Now, to a certain extent, if you're using your company's platform to express those views, then that's a whole different story. But and also, if it's off company time and property and it's blatantly racist or blatantly sexist or blatantly hate speech, then it's like, okay. But if you're off your company's clock and you're like, hey guys, I see you're saying that black people are getting killed at unreal rates. I'm looking at this paper here. It doesn't support that. Hey, can somebody clear this up? You shouldn't, for something like that, you shouldn't be able to get fired for that, regardless of what the company thinks or feels. That's a genuine expression.
I guess, but then we're just scrutinizing every reason that people get fired, because there's some dumb reasons people have gotten fired in the past. I'm sure that Trump just saying their opinion. It's, dude, the age that we're in, as you were mentioning earlier, we're not participants in the social media really. Yeah. And that's what gets people in trouble. It's like the root of everything in a way. Yeah. It's like anything you say or do could be recorded and put out on Twitter as a live video, which is, what sparks half of the things that become news now. Yeah. Maybe more. I don't know. Yeah. Did you ever see that? I don't know why I'm thinking about this movie. Nightcrawler. Jake Gyllenhaal was this weird guy that just went around and filmed his own news stories.
Oh, yep. Yeah, I saw that.
Dude, that wouldn't work now, but it does kind of work like that now. And you don't even have to sell it. I mean, it's for free, I guess, that all that content is out there, that they don't even have to put cameras everywhere, because everyone has their phone on them at all time, and they're constantly recording something that's happening. Yeah. I'm surprised I haven't seen one of these mask wearing or not wearing incidents so far when I've gone out somewhere, like someone recording someone doing something. Like, I just expect to see it. I'm just
Yeah, do you think, does the thought ever occur where you're like, is this something that's unique to human beings, where when your civilization and society gets to a certain point of comfort and ease, that it will find a way to destroy itself? Is, because you can, okay, so not you can, but I kind of reached the conclusion that a lot of these problems and this drama is being created by people who have too much time on their hands.
Well, yeah, and what do people have the most of right now?
Right, it's time. So, and I wonder, right, in our endless pursuit to make things easier, more convenient, to become a richer society, inherently, it means convenience. So remember, before, if you needed to buy something, if you needed to get a USB drive, you would have to go to Circuit City. I know you guys remember that place, Best Buy, whatever.
I used to work there.
And right. Oh, yeah, I remember you saying that. So you would have to go to those places, search, interact with people. It would be just to buy one or two items. That I remember it taking all day, right? And now we've gotten to a point where I can just click a button and now I have all of those things. So
Amazon brings it right to your door.
In 2 days, flat.
Maybe one. And sometimes they're like, you already got a shipment coming. We're going to get this there tomorrow too.
Exactly,
that
right?
Today to me.
It's craziness. So, but with that convenience comes a freeing up of your mind and your physical abilities in a way that we're not typically accustomed to. And I don't even think designed for. I think we're designed to experience a certain degree of struggle to keep us engaged with life and reality. But once that innate struggle gets alleviated to a certain degree, we start finding other ways to create a struggle for us to overcome. And then when we create our own struggle, because we're not gods, and I don't think we really understand how to, we end up creating this it's like bizarro world where we start saying no, men can be women and women can be men. And you're like, what's the reason for this? We don't need to do that. So I just question whether it's just a natural progression of human beings, that the easier and more convenient and richer things get, kind of like the crazier we become.
Yeah, but I mean, not every person that's out there protesting is, I don't know, I guess rich in a sense. I guess what you're saying is we're the richest as a nation or as a people, as humans.
As human beings, yep.
Yeah, we're doing better than we've ever done, no matter what level of the scale you're on. Because I guess back in the day they didn't have clean water. I mean, still people don't have clean water, but
yeah.
I don't know, man. It's hard to say, really.
Because, like, think about it. Do you hear these type of woke problems that have been created? You only hear these in first world countries. You don't really you don't go to Africa and hear people arguing about the fact that whether there are only two sexes that exist. You don't that discussion. It's like, I don't have time to be worried or think about something that is so fundamentally true. I got to feed my kids. I got to figure out how I'm going to make money today. People are so occupied with life that they can't create this nonsense. This nonsense can only be created if you have the freedom and the time to. And think about why it's disseminated from within the academia, because there's people in academia have time. All they do is think and write. They're tenured. They have comfortable jobs. There's not much worry to their life. So with that comes like, well, let's just see what we can make up. And maybe I'm off base here, but I'm just curious as to why it's started and gotten so crazy now. And it coincides with us having the most time on our hands than we've ever had.
I mean, in relative terms, if you're talking about, like, you know, the last like 2 years, I mean, before that, even there's been a ton of protests around the world about different injustices against different people. It's just, weirdly enough, everyone got locked down for coronavirus, and then everyone around the world at one time decided to go about protesting injustices that they saw. So obviously there's some I can't say obviously. It seems there's some correlation there between the coronavirus lockdown and what ended up happening with protests. But I don't know, man.
So, okay, let me going off of what you said. So, yes, obviously there've always been protests. But when you look at protests in Egypt with like a almost 30% unemployment rate way before coronavirus, like, those are legitimate reasons to protest. Most of the protests we see outside of America are legitimate protests. People are dying, getting beheaded. I mean, these are protests where any logical person would be like, do you understand the rights that they're fighting for? Those are rights that are so fundamental to a first world society. We don't even think of them. We think they're just like, they just come with the territory of existing. But in most of the parts of the world, they don't. So I'm not talking about those protests. I'm talking about the fact that the protests in America are based off of, like, they're not based off of truths at all.
Okay.
And that's the part that confuses me. Like America is just as like people saying America is as racist today as it was 50 years ago, or that black people are getting killed in droves, when that's not true. I mean, the substance of what people are protesting for in this country just seems, it's not the current reality that we're living in. It is a completely made up reality. And that's the part that confuses me.
Which part? That the cops are killing black people at a higher rate?
Yeah, so, and like
I feel like we talked about this the whole last time, though. Like, because this is still going on then. But I mean, if you think about what the root cause of the actual protests, I think a lot of it stems from the officers involved not being charged for anything, not necessarily just a overall, we're angry about this happening over and over again. That's just as well comes along with it, I think. But a lot of it happens when, it's like the reason that we see the need for this is because no one's done anything about, someone blatantly murdering another human being.
Yeah, but with the guy who killed George Floyd, he's arrested, he's in jail, he's going to face trial.
But I don't know if did that happen immediately?
Yeah. The one that didn't happen immediately was the guy who was chased down
Wendy's one.
in, I think, in Georgia.
Yeah,
the
but
guy,
I mean, previously, obviously, I think that's why a lot of them broken out. I thought that was the case in the George Floyd one as well. I know that it was the case with the other officers that just kind of stood there and watched him do the thing. And the other officer, I think there was another one on his back as well. So I think that's what the root cause of it was. And then it just, I mean, I think because of the coronavirus as well, it just boiled over to this like big snowball effect with this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Because especially we talked about it before, everyone has so much time on their hands, especially people of the like college age, 18 to 24 type age range, because what type of jobs can they get, as well as, not being able to actually participate in school because of what's happening. So, I mean, perfect storm.
Yeah, and I'm not so much concerned about the race aspect of it. That part, I could care less. Again, race is not that interesting to me. I guess my more fundamental point is that regardless of what they're protesting for, is there a way to advance as a society and become wealthier and have more leisure time without eating away at ourselves? Is there a way? It seems like it comes with the territory.
I mean, it's the same shit that is happening with people just not wanting to put on a little piece of cloth over their face. It's a form of protest as well, and they're doing it for a lot of the same reason you see other people protesting things right now, is because they're not able to entertain themselves for that long without interactions with other people in the world. And if they're good interactions or bad interactions, they're still interactions with another human being, which is kind of necessary for life in general.
Right. And I guess I think about this from a very personal perspective, because I know when things are going right in my life, and I don't know if this is a male thing, but sometimes I like breaking things just to see if I can put them back together. And it's a very destructive quality that I have, and I'm not proud of it, but I'm being honest with myself, and I know that exists. Sometimes I like to ruin something just to see, well, am I capable of bringing it back together when there's nothing else to occupy? When things are going too well, I kind of get antsy.
Self-destructive.
Yeah, I guess that's the word for it. So my question is that something that exists within all of us as a species? And that if we were to get to that so-called utopia that people dream of, that if we ever got there,
perfect.
We would
people
burn
don't like
it to
perfect. Yeah, people don't like perfect.
Right. We would burn it to the ground just to see if we could create it again. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from there, because I think I do the exact same thing, just whether it's on a massive scale or a smaller scale. I think we all have that destructive quality. But I don't think everyone would admit that either. So yeah. I think a lot of people are in denial about that, and maybe that is what another cause of protest and just general unrest is about.
Yeah, I certainly, and again,
that word is
wish
great for this, by the way. Unrest.
Yeah,
it's just like, oh man. It's not.
That's exactly what this is.
No one's resting right now. You're supposed to be. You're supposed to be. Everybody's supposed to be inside resting, getting away from sickness.
Yeah, and I guess I would love for that conversation to be had more in general. I guess having really honest, nuanced conversations is not the point of media and stuff like that. So I know that my wishes are unfounded, but I wish there would be that type of element that people talked about. That I think a lot of these protests are happening just because people want to see shit burn. It's because things are okay, things are all right, and people just want to like fuck up everything just for the sake of it.
Yeah, that's a thing too. Not necessarily self-destructive, but just destructive.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think I listen. I know I've told you about it before, but Hardcore History, Dan Carlin's podcast.
Yes.
I've got right back into it recently, and
nice.
it's great. But I mean, like the Genghis Khan one, all these different people either wanted to destroy others, and then that ultimately led to their destruction, or they had self-destructive qualities from the beginning, and they were overtaken by someone very, very quickly. So it's just it's innate. It goes back forever.
Yeah, it has
maybe
to be.
Do we outgrow it? I don't know. That's when the robots take over. They outgrow it for us. That's what happens.
Yeah. And also, it's like if there's that added dynamic, right? As a society grows richer and people get exponentially rich, right? There is this aspect of, okay, I know that people out there are suffering, right? But I'm not suffering. So there's this need to act as if I'm suffering just as greatly as these people who I know are suffering for sure, but I have no suffering of my own.
I mean,
so
that's just empathy. That's just
no.
Feeling empathy.
I'm not. So there is the empathy part where, like, hey, that person's suffering. I understand they're suffering. I don't want them to suffer anymore.
I think you're talking about the attention-seeking part that every human kind of has as well. Just in terms of like showing that emotion in a way sometimes is just to get some sort of attention for that action.
Yeah. So because, all right, look, I had a friend, right, who had never been through anything in his life, right? And our friendship was weird because we could never get super close. And he tried to it was a weird relationship because people naturally gravitated towards me because I have gone through some bullshit in my life, and I would have a story to tell, not because I was trying to act better than people, but when you've suffered, your stories just resonate with people a little bit more. And I think he resented me a little bit for that he had no stories similar to that of his own to tell. And the fact that people wanted to listen to me because whatever you have to say, it's not that. I have a lesson to learn from suffering. You ain't really suffered before. So what do you really have to tell me? And that's the type of so the word I was looking for is resentment, that that you don't really have a story to tell. You don't really have a lesson to give because you have never been through anything. So those people who do, you look at them and you're like, well, I've suffered too, and I've been through my own thing. And you try to adopt their struggle as if it's exactly the same as yours, and you can exactly relate to what they've been through as well. Yeah,
but I think exactly what you're describing is the point of view of the people that are the reason the protests are happening, the bad cops or the people that are very racist or white supremacy, whatever. Their view is that they've suffered just as much, that saying, the people that say all lives matter because they don't think Black Lives Matter covers it. Or they just don't understand the meaning, I guess, behind Black Lives Matter in terms of Black Lives Matter because they haven't before. And I guess the people saying all lives matter are saying, just skipping right over that. So it just seems like what you're saying, that resentment comes from the other side of things. I would say that sometimes I'm sure it comes from within, but there's so many people. I mean, the size of that. Did you see there was I think it was a picture of the LA demonstration or protest that went on, the big one on the weekend one time, a month back or something. And the drone photo of the overhead was one of the most amazing photos I've ever seen taken. I've never seen that many people in that small of an area, between buildings in a city. And it just kind of goes to show you that seems like empathy to me. That just seems like the most of the reason you're out there is because you feel for what that person went through. Whether you've ever gone through something or not, you can still try to put yourself in their shoes for a little while.
Oh yeah, sure. I definitely think that's a huge part of it, that people genuinely are it looks it's being presented this way as if people are suffering atrocities, so they're emotionally reacting to that and empathizing with people. No, certainly that happens. I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm lost in the sauce with my line of thinking, but it does strike me as odd the dynamics of these recent protests. It just seems weird, man.
It's also a different generation than who it would have been 10 years ago, I guess. Is that how generations work? No, how do they work? 50 years?
I have no idea.
30 years? I don't know.
No,
it just seems like a younger generation that I've seen out in the photos and videos of what's happening. Is that what you meant by dynamic?
No, I guess okay. I'm looking at it from the standpoint of most of the people protesting have never experienced any racism or injustice, right? And both that applies for both the black and white people protesting and every color in between. So like that's the part of it that seems weird to me, because like during the civil rights era when they were marching, and it's like, man, these people had been really treated unjustly. And to see like people who are living in the richest country at the richest time in history, who have access to every bit of technology and upward mobility that they can imagine, to be in the streets with as much vigor and passion as if we are living in the 1920s. That's the part that strikes me as odd, because it is a complete dismissal of reality. Because take, for example, when you ask most black people what is holding them back in life, if they think that it's racism, majority of black people polled say racism has nothing to do with where they are, whether positive or negative in life. But you ask white people the same question, they answer in the affirmative, that they think the thing that's primarily holding black people back today is racism. And I just,
what about,
and that's
did they ask them if they've ever experienced racism? Because I mean, I feel like a lot of the protests have been just about racism in general. Like, not necessarily, I mean, obviously about police brutality and maybe over execution of force against black people. I don't know exactly what each person's protesting about, but it seems like, racism is something that a lot of them are protesting. And I would assume that, I mean, every person can experience racism. So I wouldn't put it past that anyone that's out there actually walking and actually, protesting, that actually wanted to go out there, has experienced something significant enough, or knows someone, or have heard of someone that they go out there for that. So, I mean, it's hard to say what percentage has ever experienced some sort of racism that would make them want to go out and protest, what has happened to them and other people.
Yeah, I think
it's hard to put any type of number on that. Yeah,
no, I think I'll say this with a caveat, because I don't remember the numbers exactly, but I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that in that same data that I was talking about previously, that if you ask most black people whether they've experienced racism, most of them say no. And I mean, and if they did experience any racism, it's not what racism used to be classified as. But I don't know. I get this. I don't want to get too far into the racism topic, but I was just more concerned about, or more curious about, what this says is about human beings as a species, where we can be at a time when things are better than they've ever been, but there's a large contingent of people out there claiming as fact that this is the worst time it's ever been. So that's the part that confuses me.
For them, it is the worst time it's ever been.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's relatively for their life. But yeah, I mean,
I don't think they're saying that it's worse than the civil rights movement era.
Well, when people make claims that America's still as racist today as it's ever been, that's pretty much saying that.
It's
right.
Just, it's once again, it's hard to put a poll on or who has it or hasn't, experienced racism. I mean, yes, you can do a poll, but it's just, I hate polls. How far do they really reach?
Well, I would just put it like, I mean, without a poll, just, I think logically, you would say if there are less racist people today, then there's less racism. Right?
We already had a whole podcast about that. I don't necessarily think that's true.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did say that. Well, I guess we're on two different sides of the fences on that. Yeah, but it's a confusing time, and that's why I've tried to step back from reading too much about what's going on, because it feels, for me, it's messing with my notion of reality, because, well, it's not so really messing with.
It's so weird.
It's not necessarily messing with my notion of reality, but it's so hard to comprehend the way people are thinking that I can't keep, I don't know. I just can't keep looking at this shit, because I'm like, I understand people having different viewpoints from me. I encourage that. I love debating with people and seeing why they think the way they do and exploring their minds, their experiences. And that is my favorite part about life. But when you're talking to other people and you can hit them with a fact and that doesn't mean anything anymore, that shit is driving me nuts, dude. I'm like, I thought, and then people are saying that the scientific method is bullshit and that it's steeped in white supremacy, so we can't trust it. I'm like, yo, like, this is craziness, bro. This is outlandish.
Yeah, there has been a lot of stuff that's been canceled that has been on, not even borderline. That's, questionable to say the least.
Yo, it's like it's to me, it feels like there's an active assault against the truth.
Dude, that's been happening forever, and now people realize it because there's nothing else to fucking do.
But you think it's been to this extent, though?
I think I've always looked at it, people like this. Like, I'm just like, why? Why? God damn it, why? This is my daily life. I live inside my own head having these conversations like, oh my God, why do these people do what they do? And I try to analyze that. I mean, people have always been this way. It's just, there's nothing else to do right now, so it's more prevalent. Like, you're seeing it over and over and over again, so it's becoming more and more obvious. Like, I think it's something that kind of hid in the background for a while.
Yeah, probably.
Like, it's just like an unconscious thing that you knew about, but you put away because it was like, oh God, people are. I don't have to interact with them that much around this type of stuff. And for some reason, it just became more important that I don't know, that we talk about things that are and aren't true.
Isn't that weird, man?
I want to say Trump had something to do with it. I do. I want to say he ushered in an era where the truth didn't matter anymore, and people saw, like, the president can just say what the fuck ever. He never. Then they fact check him. They say it's wrong, and he doesn't even address it. He just brushes it off and goes to the next question. And it's like, whoa, he can do that? Oh shit, I could just tell other truths. Side truths, as like I'll call them for this.
I feel like there was a time where people defaulted to truth, and maybe I was more naive back then or paid attention less. And I'm definitely open to.
You can check facts now more than you ever could. Like,
but they're now
so
more.
Easy.
Sources of where those facts are.
Yeah, if you're looking for the right place, like if you use good, you're gonna find, especially if we're talking like number. Why? Well, it all depends, I guess. Statistics.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I'm thinking like hardcore facts, like the sun burns at whatever. That's not even hard. I don't know specifically. I need to.
But do you see how you're questioning now things that you probably otherwise wouldn't have? That's my thing. That before, let's take a perfect example that we just mentioned: the scientific theory. There was a time when the scientific theory was beyond reproach.
The scientific method.
This scientific
Wait, what are they saying? What are people saying? Because white people made it?
Yeah, they're basically saying you can't trust like math and the structure of math because
stop.
Yeah, I swear to God, bro.
Stop.
I swear to God. I swear to you. I swear to you, bro. They're saying that you can't trust math.
Am I Googling who invented math? No. What are you talking about again? Not math. The scientific method.
So they're basically saying we can't trust the scientific method because it was developed and invented by white people and it's part of the Western civilization's like imposition on truth or whatever.
Oh, Sir Francis Bacon. A sweet ass name.
Yeah.
I remember him from social studies.
So people are pretty much saying because this was invented by a white man, and basically people are also saying that
he was from England.
Yeah, they said that the claim is that there are other ways of knowing, which in essence is true. But
are they saying someone else did it before him though?
No, what they're saying is that the default to us using the scientific method, math, chemistry, physics, those are all white Europeans' ways of knowing, and that there are other ways of knowing. Like take, for example, like Native Americans,
like
how
intuition?
They are able to like intuition and stuff like that. But they're saying that I can intuit math.
That's religious stuff. You know how I feel about that kind of stuff. That's ghosts and goblins and things of that nature, and I'm not up with that. I like shows and books and games about those things, but only because they are so fantastical and don't exist. I imagine there's a world where they do, and I love that people come up with this stuff.
Yeah. So basically there's an assault because initially how this whole assault started, it was against the humanities, like social, like what's the social? I wanted to say social studies, but I meant sociology, psychology, gender studies. There was an assault against these, and even like English. They were like pretty much people are saying that we can't read English books based on white authors because they can't really understand. White authors have written from the perspective of black people, and how would they know? And basically they're trying to say that everything that we learn is whitewashed, and therefore we cannot trust it.
Wait, can black people not do white people voices anymore? Like, can Dave Chappelle not do his voice anymore? Is that against?
I don't know. They haven't got there yet.
That's my favorite.
I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know I couldn't do that.
He's so. I think of the news reporter with the blonde wig that he did on the Chappelle show. But I saw that. The reason I bring that up is because another thing that happened was I saw that. I guess there's multiple cartoons where white people voice black characters. And they're just now being like, oh, hands up, I did it, I'm out before anything happens. I saw it and I was like, oh, okay, all right. It's happening. I did see they took a you know the Golden Girls is?
Oh yeah, for sure.
About those old ladies. There was some episode where they were wearing like mud masks because they were doing like facials, I guess. You know, women do in their stuff. And they took that off of Netflix or wherever it was because they said it's blackface.
Jesus, man.
It's like, they can't help the color that the mud was, I don't think. I guess they made lighter mud.
They better find that white charcoal, bro.
Clear mud. Get that clear mud.
Dude, they took Gone with the Wind off of HBO. And again, these are just virtue signaling. Because, doesn't mean anything. Because
movies, I feel like, have only gotten better with time. You know, there's more of them, so there's more choice. You'll find a good one in there. But Gone with the Wind is just one I've never seen. I have no idea what the fuck I mean, is that Native Americans? Someone with them?
I have no fucking idea.
Black people?
But apparently there was some type of like, of course, everything is so sensitive these days that if there's anything that can be misconstrued, it will be misconstrued.
It came out in 1939?
Oh yeah, it's old as shit.
Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 91. I still don't want to see it. 1939. I do not watch movies that old. I refuse. Okay, it's a Civil War drama. Okay, that's all I need to know.
Yeah,
made in 1939.
yeah. So I will say though, we've had this discussion before. I do have an appreciation for older movies, anything before
1939. You watching shit back then?
No. Okay. Anything before what's the invention of
color?
What's the stuff? No, the stuff that they used to animation.
Animation. CGI.
No. Okay. And I have an appreciation for anything pre-CGI and all the fancy stuff in movies because, like I've said before, I think it is taken away from people's acting ability.
Goes back though, man.
It does go back, but in the 1930s and those really old movies, the way a movie was successful, you had to be a fantastic actor. That's the way. You didn't have the CGI and all the parlor tricks to sell a movie outside of what people were actually doing.
76 was when the CGI first made it out with like being able to do 3D things within the movie.
Yeah,
that's so.
But even then, it was so. It was so premature that I feel like you had to rely on acting much more. And I feel like people rely on acting, the ability to be a really good actor.
Well, I mean,
it's just not that important anymore. It feels like.
not all movies have CGI. There's so many that don't. But I mean, the invention of the green screen just made movies able to, there's some extremely low budget movies that, all they needed was a green screen to pull off one scene that, looks kind of weird. And, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know when that came out, but I love good CGI when you can't tell. We just started watching all the X-Men over again.
Oh, yeah.
And the first two.
They were rough.
Wolverine's claws just didn't do it for me.
They were rough, dude.
They looked real like plastic, like made to look like metal silverware.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like the disposable stuff. Yeah, that's what they kind of looked like. I was like, oh no, those would fall right off.
Yeah.
Great movies, by the way. I'm loving rewatching them. I hadn't seen those older ones in a while.
Oh yeah, I've watched those older ones on repeat.
Dude, the first one came out 20 years ago. That's insane. Mm-hmm. It came out in 2000.
It's been a while. Yep. It's been a while, man. But yeah, so it's this assault on truth is definitely very interesting to me, and I keep bringing this up because I'm so fascinated by it, about how Rome fell when it was at the height of its power, and if I need to read deeper into it, but I'd be very curious if some of these similar things were happening then.
You should listen to the hardcore history episode on it. I feel like some of the similar things were happening, but they didn't have technology like we did. So
but they found other ways of doing the same things we're doing, but with their time. And I wonder whether it's this thing that we have this assumption that there have been plenty of great societies that have existed before us, but most of them are either like completely destroyed, or there's like only a piece of them remaining.
The pyramids.
Nobody has any idea. But I wonder whether those are remnants, and they're trying to tell us a story. Like, okay, it doesn't matter what type of technology you invent. It doesn't matter how rich you get. If you do not figure out this thing about being a human being, about you being too comfortable, if you don't figure that out, if you find a way to toe the line of being just comfortable enough to make life not miserable, but not too comfortable to where you eat yourself from the inside. I wonder whether those were like them trying to tell us, like, yo, don't make shit too easy, motherfucker, because you're going to destroy yourself.
Yeah, it might work out that way. Maybe, yeah, I mean, the easier things get, the less satisfied people tend to be, I guess. Seems like, as we're talking about.
Because, all right.
And facts don't necessarily matter. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Let me ask you this. All right.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. Like, okay, so for me, my question is like, all right, I'm okay with thinking in a more positive light of society, but I'll even ask you, where do you logically see society going from where we stand now? What would your prediction be that where would we be in 30 years?
Dude, none of this could be predicted. I mean, maybe it could have been. I'm just saying, but by me, I've been thrown for a loop with every news I read this year. But I mean, is it any worse than any other year? Yeah, I guess with the pandemic, we haven't really had that before. But every year, there's something that tops the last year and last year. So I don't know. I feel like we're very resilient. I hope that, I don't know, man. Just learn to live with each other. God damn it. It's so far. It should be so fucking easy.
Yeah. It theoretically it sounds easy, and when we talk to each other on a 1-to-1 basis, man, whether it's you and I or you and somebody who feels the complete opposite from you.
Groups make their own mind. They become a mind, like
they become a hive mind,
breathing, other thing. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and which it has
like a monster.
And it has a ton of, to get to society, to get to where we are in this point of history, we needed a bunch of people, their minds to come together and work. So when it's working for us, it can do a lot of great. But when that hive mind turns against us, it is equally as destructive. And I just hope that's not what's happening now, because I would love for people to recognize how dope especially if you're living in America or Sweden or Norway or Australia, life is so damn great. And I'm not saying none of us are suffering, because we're all suffering. We're all going to experience death. We're all going to experience sickness, tragedy, misfortune. We're all going to experience that. But like in the baseline of our existence is significantly higher than it has ever been. But what's up?
Could it be just an America thing? Like that, the way now, what year? Let me think my history. What year did Columbus come in and just start slaughtering? That was 1600s, right? When the
1600, I believe.
Right?
Yeah.
Like right at the beginning of that. So what are we, 400 years old?
Yeah.
As a nation?
Yeah.
That's super young. That's super young. For how long did the Roman Empire last? Longer than 400 years? I feel like it's got to be much longer than that.
I don't know. I got a computer. Let me look.
I'm doing it as well.
Actually, you look, because
it was 1,000 years and they fell.
Yeah.
1,000.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
What I'm saying is maybe this way that the country was started, founded, whatever, and operated up until this point is bound to fail, destined to fail. Has this experiment been tried any other place with this many states within one body?
No.
Like this quickly? 400 years seems like a super short time. Dude, how old is England?
It is.
Like, how old is everything? I mean, what was the first country in Africa? I feel like that's got to be one of the oldest things.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of places. America is nothing. In terms of,
we're young.
Like, in terms of age, you never know. I mean, it's open-ended. It always is, right? It's open-ended till it's not.
Yeah.
And then it's, then an asteroid hits or something. Who knows?
Yeah. That's true. That's very true, man. Yeah, I know you're definitely right. So I'm not being too pessimistic. I know we're very young as a country, and we have a long way to. Hopefully, we have a long way to go.
I think you're just being kind of realistic. It's just everything's up in the air. Everybody's just kind of guessing, putting their guess out as to what's going to happen, and it's no one knows. We've never known in 400 years.
Yeah, that's so true.
That's so true. I wonder when they hit their stride, the Roman Empire. Like, was it year 500? Are we gonna die like right before 2100? And then it's like, oh shit, America became this loving, like, just peaceful nation that helped everyone around the world. And we didn't even have to leave the planet again because we fixed the shit. Like, God damn it! Why were we in the other group? Why were we in the assholes before? You never know.
Man, you know what? It could certainly turn out that way. It certainly could.
It's an optimistic view, I guess.
It is, and I mean, why with all the ways you have of thinking in life, why not be optimistic? I don't see the point of pessimism. It just seems like it'll make your life miserable. But yeah,
pessimism is definitely not useful. But sometimes people are being realistic, and people think it's pessimistic just because they don't want to hear it.
Yeah, true.
A lot of the time, I think.
Yeah, I just it would be cool if life was a test, right? And if like, have you ever thought about what it would be like if we all as human beings got on the same page? Like what would happen? I think
wait, as we talked about earlier, if everything was perfect, somebody would blow the shit up just because.
Okay, true. But what if for like a second,
everything was
even
good.
a second, we all together?
Has there ever been a time in the history of the world that a war hasn't been going on somewhere?
I don't think so. I would be very curious to like. Are we in a game? Would it pause?
Okay.
Would it restart? Like,
I have something for you.
If we're like at like a second, for whatever reason, and now we have a perfect venue for that to happen in social media. Everybody was like, "Yo, what if it was used for good for the first time in history?" And everybody was like, "You know what? Yo, we can all connect and do something groundbreaking. We can all say for one day." All come together and agree, like, let's be peaceful for today. Just one day. What would happen, bro?
We do Taco Tuesdays like every Tuesday ever, I feel like. In the history of the internet is Taco Tuesday. So we could do Peace Day. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, that would be.
Organize a Peace Day.
To have one day when nobody was murdered violently. Like, people would die because disease and anything that's innate to life, but one day when nobody was stabbed to death, shot to death. The bad
thing is, there's always going to be those people, those outliers that they hear like, "Oh, Peace Day. Oh, I'm going to crush people on Peace Day," because they're going to be not expecting it.
Yeah,
there's always going to be those outliers. People are just too different to get on the same page. There'd have to be one page that everyone could agree on, and every single person has their own page.
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh, that's really hard.
But what if that's the point?
I mean, it kind of is.
Right?
At this point. It's been going like that forever.
Right. Because if it was just as easy as getting even 1,000 people to agree on something, that shit we'd have done it a long time ago. But the whole point is that getting 7 billion people to agree.
I think it was either in Tribe, the book Tribes, or Sapiens, which I'm reading still, where he talked about 150. That's the amount of close people that you can have in your life.
Yep.
Up to. That's it.
Yep.
Like, most people most people don't have that many, but it's like that you can really know. I mean, and the numbers go down from there in terms of how close your relationship can get and the numbers that they can get with. Mm-hmm. But it's just crazy because we've been doing that forever, and our primate ancestors, I guess, did that before us and still do it to this day in terms of that type of, I guess it's almost natural selection in a way, but or at kind of at work. But I don't know, man. It's as we're talking about like peace and war and stuff. They say in that book Sapiens, like, we as Homo sapiens, we basically killed off all the Neanderthals.
Yeah, I remember that part.
And I mean, but it's funny because they were faster, stronger. I mean, sometimes I guess smarter, but in a group, Homo sapiens could actually work together to overcome the larger, stronger, faster opponent.
Yeah,
and the only reason is because we're the only animal that has the logic and reason to be able to adapt to situations like that or change something in our personality that doesn't have to change in our DNA first.
Yeah.
Because it was explaining how, basically, I mean, every single animal, the only way that behavior changes occur is during a DNA change, not like they can consciously choose to be a different way.
Yeah. That is something that's uniquely human being and
uniquely complicated.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking fascinating how we were able to do that. And it's that 150 people thing. It's so true. I think about my own life, man. As soon as I've got because you're constantly losing and adding people. But as soon as I get to a point where I'm teetering on like 160, 170, I can feel like, I gotta drop some of these motherfuckers. Like, I can literally feel it. And then I end up dropping people. And I always wondered, before reading that book, I'm like, why do I always get to a point where I just gotta shave friends off? And that's because if you get too extended outside of that 150, you feel too stretched. You can't keep track of who's dating who.
I think that's kind of what social media does too. Like, it seems like you're closer with two. Well, that's why I got off it. At least it seems like you're close with all these people, and it's like I don't want to look into your life like this. I don't want to do that.
There's way too many people, and it gives you that false sense of knowing 1,000 people, which I think stresses people out. Like, that's way too many people to know. You can't keep track of all that shit in your head. But people treat that shit like it's the reason for life, man.
Yeah.
And even at companies, did you read that? I believe it was that book, or it might have been Michael Gladwell's book, Tipping Point, where he talks about the company Gore-Tex. Like, they do divisions of 150 people. And the minute they get more than 150 people, they break it off into a new division, because they operate on the same principle that 150 people is right where you can have it, where people will govern themselves. Like, that's why in the Army, it's platoons of 150 people, because you don't have to rely on, because when you're existing with a group of 150 people, they end up ruling themselves. So there's no reliance on an outside judge and jury. They take care of all of that within themselves. Like, they understand, that's the perfect social dynamic to dole out punishment, give rewards as necessary, and everybody feels like they're a part of it. But the minute you get to like 160, 170, even that few additional people causes the entire thing to break down. And I wonder why more companies don't operate on that same foundational principle.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of working in groups, like 150 within the same office is probably, or less, is doable for most companies. Just to operate as a group.
Yeah, I don't see why they don't do that. And it's funny.
That seems like such a big number.
150 people?
Yeah, it just does. I'm trying to think, like, could I name 150 people that I know? I guess I could, but like, I'm definitely not close with 150 people by any means.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
I think
if you're not including family members, or I guess you have to include family members in that as well. Yeah. And I got a lot of family members.
There's 150 people that I keep track of, just about, where it may not be like I'm talking to them every day.
You got tracers.
Yeah, like I at least once a month, I'll be like, I'll send a text or check in and just be like, yo, how you doing? Making sure everything's good. So I'd say about total over a year, I interact with 150 people, but not consistently.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Just every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So.
Yeah, it's. I guess that's how we have to operate. Then is just if you see groups bigger than 150, there's multiple factions within that group probably.
Yep. And
doing their own thing, thinking their own thing. They're the hive mind of their section. Yeah,
and shit, I just completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, no, it's
apple time.
Yeah, I hope that coming out of this weird year, 2020 is going to officially go down as one of the weirdest years in history.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily a good or a bad thing. Sometimes you need to go through things in order to kind of, figure out who and what you really are. And it makes you stronger.
Yeah, the struggle, right?
Yeah.
2020 is the struggle.
The struggle year,
2020,
man.
AKA the struggle.
So I guess I'm too hopeful, man. I just hope we come out of this better people. But do you think that's actually too much?
Nah. Hey, I think it can happen, but people gotta get out of their houses. I guess that's one thing I've learned. God damn it, we fucked that up. That's a whole nother episode that we do still when things are updated and they'll maybe lock everything down again. Put it this way, I don't have any hope that baseball season is really going to happen, and neither does anyone in my fantasy baseball league.
Really? Well, I mean, they're starting the NBA season.
Yeah, sure they are.
You don't think it's going to happen?
It's going to spread like crazy.
Yeah, but they're not dying.
It doesn't matter. They're not going to be able to play if they have it.
There's some people who are asymptomatic. Some players have gotten it and they're like, "Oh, I got coronavirus."
Yeah, but they're gonna get tested all the time, and they're gonna. So it's gonna spread. At least, dude. So many MLB players are either dropping out and not gonna. They're just sitting out the season because of the for whatever reason. And then there's other people that already have coronavirus. Like I know 4 people on the Red Sox already have it.
Damn, bro.
Because they all just got back together, bringing it from somewhere else, basically.
Yeah.
And as you said, they could be asymptomatic, but then someone around them's not. Someone on the team. So it's, dude. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I hope it does because UFC's still going fucking strong, man. They got that shit down pat, and the fights actually are very entertaining without fans. Now it's normal to me. It's going to be really cool when they get fans back in there, because every time someone gets knocked out, it's just dead silence. You hear the punch hit the chin, and then you hear the head hit the mat, and it's just ah. And then, dude, you can hear the announcers like announcing, but you can also hear the echo of the announcers announcing in the empty arena. And then sometimes the fighters can like hear what the other fighters' coaches are saying. Like it just it's weird, but hey, it's sports.
Yeah, hey man, look, I'm gonna try to.
There's a big one this Saturday. If you want to check it out.
Who's fighting?
There's 3 title fights on Saturday night. The pay-per-view is I can't list off the names, but there's 3 different title defenses happening.
Okay,
which is great. Oh, and it's on an island in Dubai. They bought an island in Dubai, I guess.
They bought an island. It's
called Fight Island. That's where it's taking place. If you look at like location, it says Fight Island. Yeah, Dana White's super rich, so I don't know. I guess that's what he's doing with his money. But there's actually 13 fights on Saturday, and you don't even have to watch the title fights on. If you just turn on ESPN at like 6:00, there's gonna be, I think there's 9 fights before the main event, which is like a pay-per-view you have to buy. But there's 9 preliminary fights that are not the pay-per-view, which are all pretty good too.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think I'll try giving it a shot, but I'm not making any promises.
If you're just hanging out the crib Saturday night, give it a go.
Oh, actually, my girlfriend's having a birthday party Saturday night, and we're watching Harry Potter.
You got to argue about race issues.
Yeah,
you got that to do. So I'm telling you, man, you should charge the dude by the hour, and then advertise. Tell your friends.
Yeah.
I'll argue with your female friends for a little money. It's a good service.
Yeah,
promote the podcast while you're doing it.
Yeah, bro, you know it, bro. When I'm doing my podcast with my brother, all I do is promote this one.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm. I guess it is weird to hear, and I know for people it's weird to hear me talk, just because and this I kind of like this about being a black guy is that when being a black guy with a gold chain and tattoos, people just assume they know exactly how you think. And see, this is the thing. This is the thing I try to tell my white friends, that this is where white people are truly free and black people are slaves. There is a way. It's mentally. And I'm going to tell you why. When somebody sees you, Andrew, bro, when they see you, they don't make assumptions about the way you think. They look at you and they go, whatever he thinks, however he feels, it's going to be a journey trying to figure that out. I know that because I have no preconceived notions about who and what he is. But when you're a black person, whether man, woman, even Hispanic, it applies to other races, the enslavement comes in the expectancy of a way to think, talk, and act. And that's the freedom that white people have that a lot of black people don't. And when white people look at me, they assume, oh, I know exactly what this guy's going to say. I know exactly how he thinks. And it's funny because they will come up to me and start talking about like, racism is rampant. You've experienced so much racism in your life. Things are so unfair. And then when I hit them with a different type of opinion, like, no, I don't think like that. They just don't know what to do with that information.
Head exploding type moment.
They have no idea how to act. And I think it's a two-way street. It's like, yes, there are people outside of minorities who put that expectation on them of to how to think and act in it whatsoever. But then the part that minorities play in it is that they start embodying that. Like, this is how people expect me to act, talk, and think, so I'm just going to be that, right? So it's a two-way street. And I tell all my black friends, I'm like, you want to know what true freedom feels like? To not think this, to feel free, to not think the same way that everybody expects you to think, right? And I'm not saying think differently on purpose, but just think for yourself. And if that thinking for yourself leads you to the same conclusions as them, then great. But then the way you have reached those conclusions will be so much more authentic. But there's no reason why I should ever be able to look at somebody without knowing them and know exactly what they're going to think and say. That should never exist in life. You should be a dynamic, unique person with thoughts all over the spectrum. I should never be able to gauge how you're going to think and feel. But unfortunately,
that's how a lot of people are.
That's and from what I've through my experience, I've encountered it more with black folks, that there's this outline, there's this box that they must occupy, and the deviation of that outside of that box is so costly socially that it's not worth it for a lot of them to make. And I know it's costly and it sucks, and you lose friends and whatever, your family is like, you're weird, but man, that it's worth it to be that free mentally. I'm free mentally, bro, and it feels like I can't tell you what it feels. I can't describe it. It's indescribable. That I think for myself, it's fucking fantastic.
Yeah. No, I think that's an everybody trait that happens more often than not with a lot of people I speak with. Mm-hmm. It's just it's frustrating to say the least, because people wear their heart on their sleeve. I mean, that's the expression, I guess, that everyone uses for it, but it shouldn't be that way, as you said. It's the path needs to be more complex.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just, I think the most important thing in life is to explore the self and figure out who you really are. And it's not an easy task, because I think when people hear that, it's like, oh, get to know myself. I know myself pretty well.
It's really easy when you take what everyone else says about you and just say that's
who I am.
Yeah.
But to do the work of figuring out who you actually are, bro, honestly, and it kind of sucks too, because you find out like, oh, there's some parts of myself I don't really fuck with.
But you also see that a lot when people follow in the footsteps of their parents. I feel like, that's like, you don't have to be like they were.
Correct.
But a lot of people end up that way. It's weird. It's almost like a magnetic attraction, I feel like people have to that. Mm-hmm. To like, whether your parent was, I'm not necessarily just saying, your parent fucked up in some way, but mostly in that way. Like that, mm-hmm. I don't know, you tend to see people follow in those footsteps, but the people that don't are the ones that obviously think for themselves, free themselves from that. This is the cycle that my father or mother went through. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a very difficult chain to break, because you have observed someone do these things for decades, right? If like, we're 30 years old, whatever you've watched your mother and father do, you've watched them do it for 30 years. That is ingrained on your psyche on such a deep level. Yeah. To just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be different, is so effing difficult. Yeah. And it's something I had to come to terms with myself, like with my issues with my dad. I was like, all right, there are a lot of things he did that I didn't want to repeat, but I couldn't get to that place without first understanding why I was the way I was, and biologically how I'm inclined to do the same thing, because I'm 50% him. Yeah. So if I don't understand that 50% of who I am destined to make the same mistakes.
Very true.
So yeah, self-exploration is a motherfucker, bro. You're like, okay, because when you find out the things about yourself, oh God, I couldn't recommend it more. Because when you find out the things about yourself that you don't really like, you have to get rid of them. Okay, getting rid of them isn't really the hardest part, I think, in my opinion. What's harder or what was harder for me was replacing those things with something productive. Because it's to just rip those things out of yourself and leave a hole there. It's kind of like weeds in a yard. When you rip that weed out, if you don't put something in its place, that weed is going to grow right back, right? So getting rid of those aspects of my personality and my behavior that I wasn't too happy with, the first time around, I didn't replace it with something productive. Like when I first stopped drinking, I've stopped drinking like fucking 10 times in the past 10 years. But every time I would stop that, I didn't have a more productive thing to do put in its place. And it kept failing and I couldn't understand why. Yeah. But the minute I coupled I'm going to stop drinking, plus I'm going to read more, exercise more. Then on Saturday night, I'm working out. I'm not drinking, right? So I had to do those things simultaneously in order to really reach the point I wanted. To not drink was not enough. Yeah. To quit drinking was not enough. I had to put something in its place. Makes sense. You know?
Yep. Gotta break those cycles, I guess.
Yeah, man. And that's I know how you feel about religion, but this is related in the sense that, you know, I'm completely okay with people taking religion out of our society, out of school, and I'm okay with that. But religion fills such a huge void and a huge gap for most people.
It does.
That
yeah. I agree.
Just take it away and leave nothing there. I think it's unfair to those people. Which is why
I don't advocate for it being gone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. I'm not saying that's what you're advocating for, but I'm saying for the people who just want to rip religion out and never see it again. I'm like, well, then, okay, that's fine, but have something to replace it. Because what do you think has to do with people becoming so polarized ideologically with politics? It's because you took God away from all those people. Then they're like, well, my new worship is being a Democrat. My new religion is being a Republican. That's why it's so hard to talk to people on either sides of things, because that's no longer it's no longer this political theory that it's just a mental thing. It is a religion now, right? So whether you say you're worshiping a God or not, we're all worshiping something. So if we're going to rip one of the foundations out of our society as a whole, we just got to replace it with something better. And the analogy is, when you're going on that self journey and exploration, if you're going to rip parts of yourself out, which for a lot of people, you must, because it could lead to your downfall, make sure you have something to plug in its place that's going to assist you in getting to where you want to be. Because otherwise, you just rip all the parts out, then you're just walking around like a piece of Swiss cheese. Fill that shit up.
Bunch of holes.
It's just a bunch of holes. Fill that cheese up, cuz.
All right, man. Well, it's been a good one. I got to wrap this one up, though.
All right, cool.
So it's been good. We'll be back hopefully sooner this time. We'll get back to it soon.
I'm going to Cancun next week.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. That's sweet. I'm very jealous.
It's gonna be fucking fantastic.
Damn,
yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah, week after we can get after it.
Sounds good, man. Well, enjoy your time.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you, bro. All
right, we're out.
Hasn't been bright in a while.